Okay, we're here, Citizens Action Network, with Rene Powers and Steve Curry.
Hi, guys.
At the Bundy Ranch.
There's Steve Curry. Steve is a gentleman who has been fighting some of the corruption, a lot of corruption himself for quite some time, and just won a good verdict in Colorado that we're going to have him tell you about. And we're also going to have Steve tell you a little about why he's here and some of the wonderful minerals that are actually the foundation of what's really going on out here. We know Rusty Hill has uncovered a lot of the whistleblowing. He's done a lot of what's going on with the water out here. So, Steve, can you just give us a little bit of your background, who you are, how you know what you know, and then tell us what you know.
Very good. Just to set the record straight, there is not a verdict. You know, I'm winning my cases in Colorado, and I come from Western Colorado. I have been pressing forward my message, my arguments to the judiciary, as in the Colorado Bar Association. These fellows don't really like me very much, but that's their problem. What I introduce to them are the facts and the circumstances and the history of their incorporation as a very, very independent corporation. They say that the corporation of the Colorado Bar is non-profit, tax exempt, but yet how is this that all of its members, judges, magistrates, attorneys, are all for-profit? You can't have it both ways. And you cannot use a dummy corporation, which theirs is, to shelter and to limit the liability that these people face every day in the court of law. One of the biggest things I've done in Colorado was to file a proclamation back in November of 2013 telling the Colorado Bar Association, its members, its officers, to shut their network down. Having exposed the fraud, and here's one of the major pieces of fraud that we have documentation of, and this is very interesting, and you guys will find this fascinating. We have, from the state of Colorado, Secretary of State, a document. It's signed, it's sealed, it has the Great Seal of Colorado right there. And what it says is absolutely fascinating. That this document prepared in 2004, says that of record in their office, we have never shown up to 2004 anything that says the people of the state of Colorado is a corporation, a corporate body, an LLC. We do not have any record of that. And here's the key to that. The people of the state of Colorado cannot, in any form, shape, manner, fashion, be an incorporable body. The people are men, natural women.
And that this is important, and explain this part, because people are saying, well, what's the significance of that? The significance of that is when, and correct me and expand on this, is when there is a case that's brought forth which says the state of Colorado, the people of the state of Colorado versus Steve Curry.
Yep.
What you're saying is the people can't do it because there is no formation of corporation under that heading. But yet every state within our United States, when you see them, the courts going after someone as an individual, which they say the people of the state of.
Yes.
Like in our case, California, the people of the state of California versus Karen Rosier, for instance, correct? Go ahead and expand on that, because I think this is what people need to understand. That document in 2004 clearly shows that there is no viable we the people of the state of California, or Colorado even.
Basically what that document is saying is that no court, no government has jurisdiction or authority over the people. The people are defined historically all the way back to the Cyrus Cylinder, which was the first written document by King Cyrus, 500 AD, or 500 BC. The term people applies only to a man, a woman, a natural man, a natural woman. What we have to do in the courts these days is to flip the court, to make them understand that the only authority and jurisdiction over a natural man and natural woman is our Creator, our universe. We are the creation. What the courts have implied, they've presumed, they've deceived us into believing, after all these years, is that they have jurisdiction over us. The only thing that they have jurisdiction over is the person that they've identified. Now, we all have two entities. One is the person. Me being the man, I am the authorized agent for that person. We have documents, very interesting documents, oaths of office that say directly from a judge, it is in his signature and it's attested to by witnesses and signed and stamped. Here's the first sentence of that oath. I solemnly swear to administer justice without respect to persons. Persons, as always been defined in history, means an individual that has a service or debt owed. That makes that person a slave, right?
This is the oath they're taking. When we talk about the judge's oath, when we talk about pulling a judge's oath and their bond has to have the oath attached, the thing that we're finding, and Steve and I have pulled documents, and I looked at his, and when people say, well, I got the oath back, they have an oath of office, and we say, well, let's look at that oath. Mm-hmm. The first line is supposed to be their name. Why don't you explain the first line, Steve? Because I just love this part, because they can't get out of this anymore. We know, and now they know we know. That's what is happening here.
Well, that was the first line. Mm-hmm. I do solemnly swear to administer justice without respect to persons. I will faithfully and impartially discharge my duties that are incumbent upon me. Duties. What duties does he have? This oath of office is not an oath of service to the people. It's an oath of service to his corporation known as the Colorado Bar Association, the American Bar Association, and the International Bar Association. He cannot function to any level which exceeds the constraints applied upon him as in duties. He cannot exceed the corporate charter.
And how does the first line of I say, let's use just Joe Smith?
Oh, that's what we're talking about.
That's what we're talking about.
Let's go to some definitions really quick. We already described persons. Let's then talk about citizens and subjects. Where have you heard that term before? Citizens and subjects of Rome. Where have you last heard the term republic? Before the United States of America. The Republic of Rome.
The Republic of Rome. We're still under the crown, aren't we?
We're under the crown, but they are of direct service to the Vatican.
Who conquered
Great Britain?
And they also run the world central banking system, the Vatican.
Yes, they do. Who within the Vatican controls and administers? There's 12 cardinals.
Where are the Knights Templar, a.k.a.?
Well, it gets even more interesting. There's a Jesuit council set up to administer or direct.
Which is founded by St. Ignatius de Loyola.
There you go. The cardinals then, by their voice, tell the Pope what the direction of the church is going to be. The cardinals, with the council of the Jesuits, tell them who our friends are going to be. And where are all the contracts? Who do we want to contract with? Who do we have as subjects? Interesting thing, subject. It's a conquerable person. Subjects. Citizens of Rome. Citizens of Rome. Remember all the emperor movies? Gladiator. That was a great movie. Citizens and subjects of Rome, we present you with the games.
Mm-hmm.
Games
begin. This was utilized to pacify the audience, to entertain the audience, to entertain the citizens and subjects of Rome. What did the subjects and citizens of Rome have to do to get in to watch the games? They had to pay tribute. We all pay tribute through the Queen
Into the
Great
Vatican.
Into the Vatican. Let me take this one step further and right back to your discussion. When we discuss people, it has been in public domain since the first writings of Cyrus, and there's one before that in Nabro, and I can't remember the name. There's a previous cylinder before Cyrus cylinder. First written language where the term people arose. People can only identify man and woman under natural law. Biblically, we have Adam and Eve. Adam was a man, he was a natural man, and at his birth, he and his property, Eve was not only his property, Adam was hers by divine inheritance. By divine or universal inheritance, you have natural and inalienable rights. Beautiful thing. We get those natural rights at birth. Now here's a cool deal, and you have to understand this completely. At birth, you receive all of these rights, divinely provided. Within an hour of your birth, there is a contract presented to your parents. That contract is filled out with your name in uppercase.
Yes, capital letters.
And your little foot goes on there.
That's your corporation name.
Your little foot goes on there and your fingerprints. How about mug shots and fingerprints today? That re-identifies that individual that has become a subject and a citizen. What they made the mistake of doing in this very same contract, they issued property rights to your parents. Your parents own you as a property. You own your parents as property. What happens when you have a person on your land and he approaches you and says, I want that property? Let's define property again. Property is liberty. Property is freedom. Property is the pursuit of happiness. Property identifies all things that you inherited. Guess what courts do, corporations do? They come after your property, don't they? And they come after the person. They come after the corporate person. Guess who has charge over that person again? Me as the man, and they don't have jurisdiction over me. I am the authorized agent for that person. Got it? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
In a court of law, they come after me as a person, Stephen D. Curry, in all caps. They can't do anything to that person without my consent or knowledge. Nada. I'm the authorized agent by virtue of my inheritance at birth. Now, back to the birth certificate for a minute. That was a fraudulent document, well, now wasn't it?
Deceptive.
That was a forced, coerced, intimidated act of terrorism against the natural birth of that person. They took your property within 1 hour of your birth, and they put you under contract as a citizen and subject of Great Britain, of the Vatican. That is taking, that is corporate taking without your consent or knowledge. What kind of consent or knowledge base? You know, in all of our law today, we must be given the cause against us. In all courts of law, the prosecution's duty is to present evidence to show that there is a warrant against this person at birth. What do we know? We've just inherited this beautiful right, this beautiful property, and all of a sudden it's taken from us within an hour. That contract becomes bondable, it becomes securitized, it becomes valuable to the corporation. And it's theft, it's corporate taking of private property. Bringing us up to date here, we have corporate taking of Mr. Bundy's property. Corporate taking. He never gave it up. He just never consented. And here's an argument that we're going to introduce here, which is going to shock a lot of folks. 1845 was when the Bundys settled this property. Interestingly enough, they got in under what's known as the Guadalupe Hidalgo Treaty Act, and it was this exchange of property between Mexico and America at the time. These were territories, right?
I'm going to have to ask my father about that because he's familiar with that treaty.
Mm-hmm.
The treaty granted applicants, people that stood on the land, 640,000 acres.
Granted.
20 square miles. If you go to Google Earth, look at the Bundy Ranch, and there's a section up here kind of sliced up, but if you were to put it all back into square, it would be 640,000 acres, which by verbal contract over time they have gifted to other people the right to use. It was their consent.
People nowadays, you probably relate to it more as squatting.
Yeah.
You know, they allowed squatters' rights on the property.
And it was squatting by consent from the Bundys.
Mm-hmm.
If you're getting the picture here, we cannot call this public land. We can call it the land grant under the Hidalgo Guadalupe Treaty. It was the Bundys' privilege, just privilege, to give what they could to their neighbors who came about the same time or over the course of a few decades or whatever. But it was their right to give away. This was their property. And property is a phenomenal thing too. Again, if you, through faithful service and acts, are a good steward of the land, there's no reason for anybody to take you on. There's nobody to question that. If you're a good steward of the land and you're using it for a useful purpose, there can be no claim against you. Only if you hurt or injure some other party can you be held accountable. Let's take a look at that. Injury. All of common law dictates that we rely on the 10 Commandments. It's very easy. 10 steps. Thou shalt not. We all know what they are. Common law, which we are using in our courts, is so simple, so eloquent, so concise. We don't need the law books. Throw out the law. I presented Mrs. Bundy this morning with some paperwork that shows that all rules of law are unconstitutional. Rules of law. And here's how I did it. I presented her with a very famous case, an 1803 Supreme Court case called Marbury versus Madison. And if you don't know this, Marbury versus Madison sets the groundwork. It identifies the culprits. It identifies the violators, the violations, all of this. But it gives us the right to say that birth certificate, null and void, canceled contract. It was done unto me under fraud. So we can cancel that birth certificate. We can also cancel and nullify and present as void all contracts where fraud has been induced.
Deceptively.
Marbury versus Madison makes it clear. Any act, any rule, any practice that abrogates the Constitution or is repugnant to the Constitution is hereby null and void. So what Marbury versus Madison presented to us was that the rule of law stands under the Constitution of the people. This is a Constitution of the people. Now, the Constitution was a written document, but it's a good document. It should never be messed with. Any rule that abrogates that Constitution, throw it out. This is what the courts have to understand now. Their contracts with me, which was fraudulently induced, fraudulently presented, they defrauded themselves in one simple line when they said, it is the people of the state of Colorado versus Stephen Curry. Again, we talked about who people are. Mm-hmm. They can't be incorporated. They're not corporate entities. Never will be. The term people is public domain. It's been used forever. You can't trademark it. You can't copyright it. You can't incorporate it.
So it's trickery. I would call it trickery. And the other thing is, Mrs. Bundy asked, she said, well, how does this affect the court? Well, this document you showed us, this oath. How? And I said, well, what's interesting in this oath is when you read the first where they recognize the person who's going to sign the oath, Joe Smith. Now, mind you, it doesn't say Judge Joe Smith. It says Joe Smith in capital letters, probably Joseph Smith. And then where Joseph Smith is to sign, in everything we find, the capacity that this person is signing, and I am saying person because it's a corporation at the top, remember, is in just his normal signature, wet signature. Well, anyone out there that knows contract law or that knows anything about LLCs or businesses, when you have it, you form a corporation, and the person signing the documents has to sign under what authority they're signing that document. So when Joseph Smith goes to sign his corporate document, don't you think, and this is my question to you, Steve, what really threw me and Karen and I down at the court when I recognized what her judge signed, I said, do you realize, doesn't that judge have to sign Joseph Smith as managing member for Joseph Smith, the corporation?
Yes.
And not one oath is signed that way. So when Mrs. Bundy asked us, well, how come now it makes a difference? Well, it makes a difference now because we understand, not understand, but we know it. We know that anybody who has a business knows that you can't sign a contract just with your name. When you go to sign your escrow papers for a home, if you're signing as the company or signing for another entity, you always have to recognize how you have the authority to sign that document. So, Steve, I'd like you to talk a little bit about that, because this is key as to why there is no judge sitting on the bench with authority.
Let me cover one important part, and everybody has this in their wallets and in their purses, and it's called a checkbook. If you'll take a loop like this and look what is printed under the line where you sign your check.
That's a magnifying glass, by the way, for those who don't. Yeah.
Yeah.
Take your magnifying.
I'm a scientist as well. I study meteorites, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But if you'll take a loop like this, or any magnifying glass, underneath that straight line with that X where it says signature, look what it says. It says authorized agent.
Bingo. So they know to put our checkbooks correctly printed with authorized agent. So why are judges and those taking oath as a corporate entity not signing as agent, authorized agent? That's very key. So those out there who say, oh, these people are nuts, they don't know what they're talking about. Well, think about it. Common sense tells you cannot just sign for a corporation unless you're an authorized agent. So it's on our checks, so the banks know it. It may be in small print, but it's there. You may have to use a magnifying glass to be able to see it. But this is key. This magnifying glass is key. Why is it everything legal anymore is hidden so that we have to search for it with a magnifying glass? If you have to search for something to find it with a magnifying glass because it's so little or hidden, wouldn't that be enough right there to say fraud is void?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And using a magnifying glass, of course, we can get closer to the truth. And this is what Rene and fellow committee people are doing around the country. Let's see, we were talking about contracts. Contracts. Here's something we have to understand about contracts. In common law, let's take those words apart. Common law. Common law. Com, first three letters, means commerce of man. Law. Commerce of man. Law. It is also referring to the common man. It is also referring to, as our good buddies in the judiciary like to term it, it is the written order or ruling from a bench. That's the king's bench law, or the bench of the king's law. It refers to admiralty. It refers to maritime law, the bench of the King's Court, the bench of the Queen's Court.
In maritime law, this is something that what is interesting, because those of us who, maybe live by a body of water, you have vessels, you have ports. There's a woman gives birth through a canal for this birth certificate to be now in commerce. People don't understand the power of that. I never understood. I thought I had children. Well, I didn't know they were my property. These horses, if you'll scan out here just a little bit, ladies, and look, these horses, these cows, this property is inherently the Bundys. This is their property. Your children are born through a canal. And I'd like you, because people don't understand maritime law, is exactly what it sounds like. It's fascinating. It's fascinating once you start looking at documents and contracts and start reading them with the thought of maritime law is about transportation through water. And what's key, and why I'm segueing here, is what we found, those of us who, now Steve and I unknowingly have been helping similar or same people. We had never met before, and last night he brought up a name, Michelle Hansen, and I said, yeah, I know Michelle. Our conversation started because of waterways, because I asked Michelle, do you live near water? She was losing her home. So anyhow, Steve and I have been working with the same people without even knowing it. So when I brought up the water, I want you to expand on, because that is key here. Rusty Hill, again, back to Rusty, has uncovered all the water issues here under the Bundy Ranch and land issues. So explain to our viewers why waterways, whether you see them or not, they exist. They exist underneath us. They used to exist in certain areas, so although the water isn't there anymore, their inception and the creation of the boundaries and such around those waterways still exist. Doesn't mean the water can't ever come back, but the water is still there. The rights to that are still there. So go ahead, Steve, because this is what's important.
Just a word here on vessels. Remember, we're talking about persons and authorized agents? The person is the vessel. The people inside the boat. Boats and ships and planes can only be manned by women. So inside that vessel is a man and woman. You can only charge freight. You can only tax the vessel. You can only tax the person. But the authorized agent, me, you have no jurisdiction over. Right? We go back to the natural right. Admiralty law, it was basically created as the Roman Empire was developing, and they were sending ships out to all corners of the earth to conquer and bring in subjects. And when you bring in subjects, you can tax them. You can bring in persons and then call them citizens. Now, citizens refers to a conquered country or a conquered land. Citizens then become the subjects, and they become the persons chargeable under Admiralty law. But those vessels, again, they're full of who? Men and women. They have to give their consent. They must ask the city of Rome, for instance, or Britain, may I please come to berth? They stand up, they sit out in the harbor, and they send a boat in. Sir, by your privilege, sir, we would like to come to berth. Okay, that is the first formation of a contract. It is the transportation. It is the liquidity. Water. Contracts must be liquid. Money is liquid. So this all transfers into maritime admiralty law. And under good stewardship, all seas should be open to all men, unless you cause another man injury, and then you must be answerable. When you take someone's property, as in you want to board another vessel, you must first announce yourself in full faith and credit. I'm an honest man. This is an honest ship. This is who I am. I'm acknowledging to you by the raising of my Admiralty flag who I am. I'm asking for your respect, and I will respect you.
And may I come aboard?
May I come aboard.
Whenever you go on someone else's vessel, may I come aboard.
All the courts in our country, every justice center is a corporate vessel of Great Britain or the Vatican. We must ask to come aboard. Do we want to go aboard? Not really.
No.
Not anymore now that we understand.
Are we commanded to come aboard? Yeah. Let's take it simply. An order from the court is no different than that judge stopping by Burger King at lunch and ordering a sandwich. What does he have to do to get his order?
Pay.
It's called fair and just compensation for your order. This is commerce. You must pay the bidder after to get your sandwich. That's commercial law. How simple can it be? Let's go into corporate again, just for a minute.
Let's wind that up, because I think we need to get into the water here, because that's going to be the juice of it. And because the rest of it, this is all, it's all basic. It's all contract law. And either you're a corporation or you're a man or a woman. And those of us who are understanding that more now realize we're the man and the woman. So with the Bundys here, the Admiralty law and the water issue, and Rusty Hill's finding that the water is the issue here, which leads to more issues that we know, and you know because of your field. Will you expand now on this land, on the water, and on what comes and surrounds the water and this 640,000 acres? And also, before we go forward, I want to make one more comment. There was a really irresponsible story put out recently that said the Bundys weren't telling the truth, that they couldn't find any records in Nevada going back before, was it 1950 or 1947? This person who went into the land records to do this, it was very irresponsible of them to use that story as the Bundys did not own the land prior to that. What it was that person looking did not know how to search for the records that exist, that we're talking about, that are hard copies, that are there. But if you do not know how to search, and you do not know or understand what you are doing by presenting information that is either half-truth, a quarter truth, or irresponsibly given as fact, that is what we're up against with the media right now. So what we're giving you is information based on facts, based on experience, based on knowledge, and Steve is one of the most knowledgeable men when it comes to water and minerals that you're going to find. So this is a responsible report on what you're going to hear here, just like Rusty Hill's report was very responsible because he backed it up with facts and he understood how to get them. So I don't know who did that story. I don't care to know who did that story, but I would like to say that anyone in the future that chooses to do a story on any family, on any person's property, be responsible enough to do it in a way that doesn't incite fraud. Thank you. Go ahead, Steve.
Sure. A little background before I get into what the Bundys have here. I am not only a law researcher and fact researcher, I'm a scientist. I consider myself a naturalist. I study certain things like astrobiology, astrophysics. I know meteorites up one side and down the other, and I know for a fact that meteorites are not rare. And we've actually come full circle, or I have come full circle in my research over the past 4 years. And I'm a very diligent researcher. I will not put a claim out there that is not sustainable. Never. That's just not who I am. There's a corporation out there that doesn't like my exposure of them that I've done. We found that this corporation has a monopoly over all things meteoritic. In order to have a monopoly, you must perform like the De Beers in the diamond market.
That's my name.
Oh, cool.
My last name is Beers. Is it? De Beers.
Based on the same model of behavior. same model of behavior that the De Beers diamond market is based, is what the International Meteorite Collectors Association is based. They must first declare rarity. In order to establish any kind of value in commerce, you must say, hey, it's rare. There's not many of them here, and I possess what there is of this.
Okay. She's got 1 bar left. So basically,
Okay.
I hate to cut you short on that, but basically what you're saying is we know you know what you're talking about. The universities across the United States know you know what you're talking about. And what you're going to tell us now, because we are going to have to wrap it up time-wise here, is what you know exists on this land and
Absolutely.
why the BLM is willing to spend $20 million to steal their property and make it look as if this is about something about cattle or tortoise or them doing something wrong. There's got to be a reason people will spend $20 million
You bet.
in an effort.
Rare earth minerals, tantalum, neodymium, uranium, thorium, bismuth, iron, silver, gold, platinum, everything. They're all considered rare, and by golly, they're really not. The only place that we know of that gold, silver, platinum, and all of that come from is in a supernova complex. It is the process of a supernova, the exploding star. From iron, the element iron, and all precious metals that line up that are made out of iron, gold, silver, platinum, is created in a supernova. It takes tremendous temperatures and pressures to create 1/2 gram of gold, 1,000,000 billion degrees. That's a lot. That's a very high temperature. So everything that we find here on the surface of the earth in gold, silver, platinum, iron came from out there. This fence line out here, that's all iron. Guess where it came from? Out there. It was planted here on the crust of the earth. And here's a statement that must be known loud and clear. Every mining concern around the globe is centered around a meteoritic or asteroidal deposit. Guess what Bundys have here? We have an asteroidal or meteoritic deposit of a particular element, and it's called magnesium dolomite is what they're terming it. What it is actually is magnesium sulfite, which is the metallic igniter for jet fuel, rocket fuel. They have this in great abundance right here on Bundy's property. Oh yeah, here's a piece of iron. This is an iron meteorite. I discovered this in western Colorado.
It started out looking like a regular rock that you would just step on, that you wouldn't even...
A rusty piece of rock. And this is what the cabal came after me for. They said, oh, you're a liar. We can't even find nickel in here. Well, what they'd used against me was fabricated information analysis. Their analyzers, which is called an XRF analyzer, was rigged. It was rigged only to detect man-made mineral alloys. What's man-made about that? Not a thing. Did they find nickel in there? No. Did they find chromium? No. Did they find titanium? Did they find thorium and vanadium and uranium, tungsten, gold, silver? Did they find it? No. And so they reported to the courts, and they contracted with the courts to issue theft charges against me, criminal simulation. I was trying to simulate something. They said that this cannot possibly be what Mr. Curry's...
And this weighs 60.9 grams.
Mm-hmm.
And tell the people on the other side of this how much per gram that gem right there is worth.
Anywhere, iron meteorites it's a large range. Anywhere from $5 a gram to $200 a gram. That makes that worth, at $100 a gram, that's $6,090 for that piece. What Bundy has on his property right here, Katie, bar the door. There are other meteorites, the stony versions from the moon, sitting here on Bundy's place. Those meteorites are bringing anywhere from $1,000. At one point, they brought $40,000 a gram.
So basically, folks, what we're telling you here, and we're going to have to cut it short here because we have some things we've got to go back over to the ranch to do. But what we're telling you is what you're standing on your property, if you're having your property stolen from you,
It's probably having something to do with
you
that.
might think if you're near waterways, what can, and tell us what they use these minerals, what does some of this mineral fuel?
Well, rocket fuel, number one, it's the metallic igniter for rocket and rocket fuels. Actually, magnesium sulfide is used as a component in all primers for ammunition.
So, key words here. What you see is a rock, and again, we've all been deceived because those aren't just rocks out there in them there hills. That's rocket fuel, that's ammunition, and you as a man, as a woman who has your property, have a right to those minerals, but they've tried to take them away from us. So remember, fraud's void. The Bundys, we can take their properties back to, what year was that document? 1846?
1845.
1845. 640,000 acres.
20 square miles.
20 square miles of
Minerals.
when they said the sky is falling in Chicken Little, look what's falling out of the sky, and what has landed hundreds of years later. They figured it out.
Meteorites?
Meteorites.
You bet. And back to the water for a minute. If you're going to refine or refractor any of this natural material, you're going to need water as the key ingredient to separate the different metals from this meteorite.
So what better than to control the water? If you control the water, you control the man and the woman who have the right to extract their minerals from their land. So, Citizens Action Network, I'm Rene Powers. This is Steve Curry.
Steve Curry, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you for joining us. Google Steve Curry. Follow him. Follow your neighbors who are being foreclosed on and ask. Maybe it's not the roof over your head, but it's the ground upon which you walk. Thanks, folks.
That's Citizens Action Network. Go to citizensactionnet.com. Go to Citizens Action Network on YouTube. Stay tuned. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Renee.
My pleasure.